Howdy, two beasts. Dear Uncle Birch here. It's a pre-coffee rant. I'm still drinking my coffee, formulating my ideas and whatnot. I have this thing that I find myself talking about a lot in the local craft community, and so I've come to think that maybe it's important. Maybe it's important enough to say to the entire world. Now, you out there studying on the witch school box, you've learned a lot of really cool stuff, and hopefully you're learning this circle. Hopefully you're thinking about the circle now, trying to figure out your circle. What's your temple going to look like? But there's some mistakes I've seen. Now, first of all, we agreed a long time ago, all of us witches, back in 1974, that none of us has the only one and true only right way. Words to that effect. And while that may be true, I find that some ways are righter than other ways. Ways that have a good rationale behind them and a reason to do them are righter than ways that when you ask people why they do them, they go, I don't know. So that's the way the old people taught me to do it. I don't know. Well, here's some things that I've seen get very blurred over my time in the craft with the coming of Wicca and all the little watered down crafts out there. And some errors, just some little errors that I've seen along the way, some stuff that got lost that I'd like to try and get unlost again. First of all, when we're talking about the circle, we're talking about 4 directions and typically elemental forces with those directions. North being earth, south being fire, east air, west water. Most people don't agree on that. However, the way I learned it is a threefold thing. When you went to a quarter, you were calling the element, the elemental, and the watcher. These 3 things, very different things, seem to have become very blurred post-Wicca and lost in the equation to where people don't even understand what they are anymore. First of all, we got the element, earth, air, fire, and water. We know those. You know, we got dirt, we got fire, we got air blowing around, we got water in our sinks. That's the element. Raw element. The elemental, if we were to think of it this way, it would be more the ethereal form of the element, the spirit of the element, if you will. Gnomes, salamanders, sylphs, undines, the old creatures for the elements, the elemental creatures. And there's 3, the Watchers, the Grigori, a race of ancient beings that inhabited this planet way before anybody else did. Doesn't matter what source you look it up, you look at it in the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, all the ancient witchcraft stuff. In Strega they talk about it very specifically. The Grigori, the Watchers. They're not elementals, they're not elements. They are very powerful creatures that come when you call and leave when they're bored. That's what they taught me when I was a kid. And then half of the ritual flair and pyrotechnics are just to keep the Watchers watching, to keep their attention focused on you, because that is a very powerful source. Now, really quick, don't want to take up my whole 10 minutes, but when I was a kid, in Circle, there was some very specific language used, and I find that when I find pieces of that very specific language with some lines changed later in life, that somehow these lines are related and often came from the same source once upon a time. All this witchcraft, all this Wicca is related to similar sources way down the line, and that gets lost. Now, upon closing the circle, I was taught when I was a kid that to the god and goddess you said this, go if you must, stay if you will, but between us may there always be perfect love and perfect trust. Go if you must, stay if you will. Stay if you will, go if you must. Between us, may there always be perfect love and perfect trust. There you go. It rhymes. Typically around Santa Cruz, the common lines that I hear in all of the crafts around town is the same exact language. Go if you must, stay if you will, but ere you depart to your lovely realms, we bid you hail and farewell. Now, the first part of the sentence is such a specific part of the language that we got to figure that these came from the same source. Once upon a time, these were something somebody elaborated on, and somehow something got lost, if in fact they did come from that same source. Because those same lines are said to the elements, to the elementals, and to the watchers. These are said to the quarters, typically in most of the crafts I've seen. Now, in my craft, when I was a kid, they talked specifically against that and had a rationale against that. And what you said to the elements was, go now back to your lovely realms, harming none along the way. Not only do you had to send them back to where they went and give them stipulations not to hurt anything along the way. These were considered raw elemental forms. And they said very specifically when I was a kid, never, ever, ever leave the elements and the elementals laying around, or they decay to their negative form. Now, if you think of Earth's prosperity, growth, money, these kind of things, what's the worst case? What's the worst side of that? Poverty, disease, death, immobility, inability to get past objects. You're stuck. Worst case, that's what happens to the elementals if you leave them laying around. Now, that's pretty much the gist of the rant, is that these crafts came from each other, and that I have seen, I really believe, something lost in the equation. And anybody I've asked around my area, and I've asked priestesses and priests and teachers and whatnot, so why do you do that? Why do you let the elements stay around? And I have not had an answer yet. I've not had even an attentive answer. What I've heard is a lot of, I don't know. From priests, from teachers, from people teaching younger people, and no more of that. That's inexcusable. You, if you're teaching, should be educating yourself more and more every day. And I see it clear as day. Somebody else should have spotted this a long time ago. The elements are raw forms that we tend to call into place with our blade. Our blade, if we look at all the other crafts, our blade's for like projecting things, putting them in place, not asking them what to do. That's the wand. These are things that I've found lost too. The usage of the wand and the athame tend to be lost, but they came from one source once upon a time. And it was always seen that the wand was receptive and the blade was projective. And even if people aren't seeing that anymore, if you look at what they're doing with the tool, if you're projecting the circle out to the circumference, and then you're calling the elementals with that, you're forcing something into place. It's a force tool. The blade is a force tool. Did you see my rant on that? I got a rant on blades. You can read that. It's a tool of force. So I don't know, maybe somewhere in there the lesson's implied. We're telling you which is the right way to do it by way of showing you what tool you happen to be using. So the wand was used for the god and goddess. Blade was used for the elementals. If you've got a rationale why this is wrong or why it works to just leave the elements laying around, if you've never had your life suddenly turn into chaos for some unknown reason and weird shit coming from your temple room, then cool. I'd like to hear that rationale. But so far, I haven't heard anybody with any argument, let alone a better argument than mine. So the elementals should not be laid around as far as I know, and I think this way is righter than the other ways that I've heard. Elements, you tell what to do. We don't just let a fire be anywhere. We make the fire in the fire pit, and we try and keep the fire in the fire pit. We don't let water just go all over our house. We use plumbing to tell it exactly where to go. Why, in this case, should we give elements clear reign of our circle? Now, the watchers are a whole different thing. They leave whenever the hell they want to, and that's a whole nother rant. So I'm going to leave you with that. Absorb that. So Merry Meet, Merry Part, 9 minutes. I gotta go.